we have a quorum. Thanks, Dan. We have a quorum of the Finance Committee, so I will call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Are there any corrections, additions, or subtractions to the agenda needed? I'd welcome a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by Jim, seconded by Randy. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Onward. So I guess first we'll go over the third quarter update of the current budget.
Actually, Greg, if we could just do quick introductions before we jump in. So just wanted to, in addition to myself, joined here in the room, Lynn Harding, outgoing financial services manager, her last finance committee meeting.
Still not happy about it.
And Tyson Justice started in February, and we've also got Tiffany Flores. So Debbie's out today, so Tiffany is sitting in. She's our the agency records coordinator and public records officer, and also we have Mike Schultz, compliance manager.
Howdy, Chris and Dan.
And then so we've got Dan upstairs running Zoom, and Chris also assisting with running Zoom.
Great. And got three of our four Finance Committee members here with Jim and Randy and myself. So we'll get started now. Great to have folks with us. So is Tyson going to present the third quarter, or Lynn in her last finance
minutes approved first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. We had minutes from January 8th. Did people have a chance to review those?
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from January 8th. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, minutes are approved. Thank you for that, Jim. And now we'll go on to the third quarter of 25.
I think just hand it right.
I think I hand it over to Tyson
Over to
Justice.
Tyson.
Yeah, so I'm taking over the Q3 financial report today.
Great.
Jeff and Lynn, feel free to jump in at any time. It's gonna be pretty quick. Kind of overall bottom line, we did fairly well for Q3. We're looking at a surplus to our fund balance of $261,000, which is pretty good. That brings our overall fund balance up to 4.8 million for the end of Q3. Looking at the revenues, I just want to touch on a few line items here. So we've managed to receive 86% of our projected total revenue year to date. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but revenue collection is strong, but that might result in some issues later on for the end of the last quarter of this fiscal year. Looking at notice of construction, you can see that we are down year over year in that one line item, and that's largely due to just market and economic factors in our jurisdictions. Another line item that kind of pops out is the wood smoke reduction grant. You'll see an increase in the wood smoke reduction grant revenue for this fiscal year. And that's was due to the fiscal year 24 agreement not being fully executed until the second quarter of last fiscal year. Chica Peak, there was a decrease in revenue for this year, and that was mostly attributable to a decrease in administrative costs, which were incurred by the American Rescue Plan grant. And I don't know, Lynn, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The American Rescue Grant was completed in fiscal year 2024, and that was for the purpose of purchasing a trailer for Chica Peak and site cleanup. And we were able to use some administrative dollars from our Chica Peak grant because the ARP grant did not come with any admin dollars. So there was an increase in admin in the fiscal year 2024, a decrease in fiscal year 2025, and it's tapering off because of the exceedance of our annual allotment that we typically are entitled to. And so, but we're still on target with Chica Peak, our work plan that's still moving ahead. And I know that Odell will be providing some update to the Chica Peak site and the dynamics that are happening there as well.
Moving on to investment income. Investment income for this fiscal year is strong. We've collected $94,000. And that's due to our pretty large fund balance and a healthy interest rate by the Thurston County Investment Pool.
Hey, Dan, can you make it a little bit bigger on the screen?
And I'll just acknowledge that we've been joined by Mike French. Welcome. You're actually driving down. Good man. Are you driving down to the meeting?
Yeah, sorry, I'm late.
No.
Oh, all right, great.
You get
No,
points
I'm
for
sitting
showing up.
outside the Forks Library. I have a business meeting. Yeah, oh, sorry.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you don't get points for coming down to.
No, I don't get points.
McCarthy, sorry. All right, sorry, Tyson, go ahead.
And then Dan, can you scroll down to the expenditure section? Thank you. So expenditures remain at or below expected levels, with one exception being the program operations, and maybe scroll down a little further down to the programs. There you go. Thank you. One item of note within the program operations is the professional legal services for the Friends of Grace Harbor case. So the total represented on the quarterly financial statements, they do not include the March billing that we just paid. That March billing was roughly $10,000 or sorry, $20,000, which we paid in April. And we do expect to get more billings for that case for the remainder of this fiscal year. So we are expecting a budget amendment next month because of those increased costs. So expect that for next finance committee meeting.
And I may interject, and the reason for a budget amendment is because per board direction, expenses cannot exceed 10% of each of the 4 budget categories that was instituted a number of years ago. And the expense line of professional services, legal, Friends of Grace Harbor, that was not in our original 2025 board approved budget. This came later on afterwards. It was also agreed by the board that penalty funds would be paying for the legal cost of this case.
Yeah, so
Where's the rest of the legal retainer?
if
Is it
you
in the-
scroll,
in the non-payroll?
correct,
Yeah,
so if you
the
scroll up to the
professional services.
non-payroll, there's a line item, professional services. So that's where the rest of the legal expenditures are housed.
Okay.
So the Friends of Grace Harbor case was drawn out because of the,
Cause it's programmatic.
programmatic and so.
Yeah, I just wanted to think about both of them together. Thank you.
And so, just kind of to wrap up, although we had a year-to-date performance, which resulted in a fund surplus, a net surplus to our fund balance. We're projecting a revenue shortfall in Q4. And that's because we've collected over 86% of our projected revenue at the end of Q3. So because of that, we still have expenditures coming in for Q4, but we have only about roughly 20% of our revenue outstanding. So
Where are we at benchmark wise? I'm trying to look at my phone. It's hard for me. I don't have a screen. Benchmark wise, year to date, where are we at?
yeah, so benchmark wise, we've collected 86% of our projected revenue at the end of Q3.
And the year before that? I'm that guy that's always gonna ask that one.
Sure.
Closer
So-
to accurate.
The end of last fiscal year, at this time, at the end of Q3, we had collected 154%. And I think that was because.
Of the one-time
that was
penalty,
the
that
other
1.9.
Yeah.
That
So
one.
do you have the year before by chance? Do you have more than 1 year? Do you have the year before by chance? I'm just trying to figure out myself, if it's something I need to be worried about or not, or. Cause it seems like that could be actually normal for us, if I'm remembering back.
Mhm.
I always try to do 2, 3, even 4 years back in my head.
Sure.
24 is not a good example either. We had that $2.5 million fine in 24.
Right.
So we were, what,
Yeah.
1,000%?
Yeah, Lynn's looking,
And I believe some of the revenue line items are front loaded, so we do receive a lot of the revenue up front at the beginning of the fiscal year. So I think that is something we expect. I think that applies to assessments, if I'm not mistaken. And that is a big line item in the revenue section of our Q3 financial statements here, so. But so since we collected 8% of our total revenue for this fiscal year, we are projecting a shortfall of $400,000 for the end of the fiscal year, so.
And that's in line with the approved budget.
It is, so, we, for this fiscal year's budget, we had, planned a contingency carryover of $425,000, so it's actually coming in a little lower than that. So.
Oh, Tyson, it'll take us a while to learn how to work with each other, and I
Sure.
apologize, I mean nothing bad, I'm just still always trying to figure out the number. What you're calling a shortfall, is that actually a shortfall from what we had budgeted and planned, or is it a shortfall from just what you were even, where breaking
Yeah.
even counts?
Yep.
Does my question make any sense?
Yeah, so shortfall, basically, our revenues are not gonna cover our total expenditures for the fiscal
But
year.
for our budget, what we budgeted, are we gonna have a shortfall compared to what we expected?
No, in that case. we
That's
won't.
what, okay.
Yes, because we had budgeted a contingency carryover of 425,000. The actual contingency carryover will be 400,000. So in that sense, we do not have a shortfall.
So good, I remember that, so
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking in my head, but if we come up 400,000 as an actual shortfall from what we budgeted,
Yeah,
then that's time to be worried.
it's less bad news.
Yeah, no, when you
So-
said it, I was like, oh, it's 800,000.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
so we'll just find out the way that we'll communicate how we're thinking.
Sure,
cool.
Yeah.
So we're actually gonna spend it this time, so you're
Well,
saying.
we'll spend the majority of, of what we anticipated, but there's still a couple of uncertainties. We don't know whether we're actually gonna make a vehicle purchase this fiscal year or not. There's, still a few kind of uncertainties.
Which would affect the bottom line.
But again, that's all things that we had discussed and put into the
Exactly.
budget. We're on track for the budget of what we told each other when we.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So the only amendment is that there's not enough enough in there to pay for the legal as well.
Right, so the amount that, as Lynn said, when we move money between these four programs of more than 10%, when there's more than a 10% adjustment, that's something that we need finance committee and board, ultimately board approval to do. And because we didn't actually put a line item for this in the budget last year because the permit hadn't been challenged at that point, we didn't know to put a line item, so.
But we didn't have to because we had, we still had it under professional services, which it could count as that. It's the same. My question is looking at, are we gonna need to adjust, that line item? No.
Okay,
Because
and that's
it's
it.
20,000 coming
It's a
in.
good point. We're not gonna be increasing the budget authority and expenditures. We already have savings that is gonna be transferred from a couple lines to cover
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
that line. So there's no additional expenditures bottom line.
Good.
Okay.
Good question.
Thinking about the transition.
All right. Well, that's good news, Tyson. Thank you, and good conversation. Do we don't have an attachment for the budget amendment, but we're just talking about the legal fees that we need to do. Do we need to take that as an action in front of the board?
Not this month. I think the plan was that we were just gonna let you know that we'll be coming with that. While we were talking about the fiscal year 2025 budget, we wanted to mention it. But we'll look for, we'll bring that to the May Finance Committee meeting, and then we'll get approval at the May board meeting,
Great.
was our
Okay.
plan.
Any other questions on the quarter 3 financial report? Excellent work, Tyson. You're a veteran already, so it's, nicely done. Now, even a little stickier, maybe, shall we go and start to look at our first reading of the 26 budget?
Sure. So I'll offer just a few kind of initial thoughts, and then I'll hand it over to Tyson. So the budget looks a lot like what you've seen before. In terms of the package we shared, starts off with a 4-page overview, followed by revenue and expenses chart, and then contingency fund balance, and then followed up by a variety of supporting documents. And just a quick reminder about our schedule for finalizing the budget. Again, because there is less than 30 days between the May board meeting and finance committee meeting and the June meeting, we'll actually go out for public comment before our next finance committee and board meeting. We'll go out for public comment on May 9th. And so if there's any updates or changes that you'd like to see made in the budget before we go out for public comment, today would be, or in the coming days would be a good time to hear it. Because, and then again, we can always make changes. The board can adopt changes before approving at the public hearing at the June meeting. But according to RCW, we do need to have an approved budget by the 4th Monday of June, since our fiscal year starts on July 1st. So, let's see, so just at a high level, the budgeted contingency draw is 447,000, slightly larger than budgeted for our current fiscal year. The budget does include moving 150,000 from our database contingency fund to move so that we can early in the next fiscal year hire a contractor for moving forward with that project. We are holding one position vacant, the financial specialist position, which does result in some savings. And we are proposing, so for the most part, our fee increases and assessment increases are consistent with board resolutions saying that we use the consumer price index of 2.3%. So most of our fee programs have that increase. We are proposing a large increase to our land clearing burn permit fees, and that's detailed in the briefing memo on page 21. Again, we can talk more about that. That's kind of primarily why Mike is here, in case you have any questions about that. And again, this is consistent with conversations that this committee has had about the importance of looking at our fees and ensuring that they are covering the costs of operating these programs. And in fact, our rules do say that our fee programs will cover the costs of operating them. And so we'll be looking at fee increases. We'll be looking at efficiencies within the agency and other things. But so just wanted to mention that. The main uncertainty, I'd say, with our budget right now is uncertainty related to federal funding, particularly what we call our core federal grant. Current federal fiscal year has this funded fully through the end of September. But again, don't know exactly what is in store after that. The draft budget includes a 20% reduction in that amount in what we've got currently. But again, we just really don't know what that means. If that is cut more than that, we'll be back to you for a budget amendment, and we'll need to have some conversations about what the loss of that means. It's not a huge amount, so it's I think we'll see that figure in just a minute, but we're taking it from like 175,000 down to 130,000. So again, it's not a huge amount. It's, I think, about 6 to 7% of the agency budget. But if we were to lose that entirely, we'd have to talk about what that means. There's also just a little bit of uncertainty with regards to the Lacey monitoring site. Again, we've talked about, we've got a grant from the Department of Ecology to purchase a new monitoring shelter at the Mountain View Elementary site for $80,000. We've got that signed a contract with Shelter One, the manufacturer. They're working on it. They expect to deliver it in either July or August. And at this point, Ecology is able to draw down those funds, but those funds that program was funded through the Inflation Reduction Act. So whether those funds will still be available when we're able to draw that down, we'll just have to see. We've got our fingers crossed, but just wanted to mention that as another point. And so that's all I have, unless there are any questions before I hand it off to Tyson.
You had a couple of questions.
That's great. Great, Randy.
On the land clearing, certain areas we we do those permits, I think internally how does that work for permitting and who gets the money for that? Does the fire departments get them that are doing them there?
Yes, whichever fire departments do them, or the county and fire marshal, they get the money, they can establish their own fees. Mason County right now, last I checked, was charging $175 for a permit.
And I'm a guy that don't like to add increased fees, but maybe we still should have a conversation at some point about a base fee that comes directly to the organization though. Since enforcement and stuff like that after the fact, it's still ours.
Yeah,
Maybe we consider that a small amount, well, maybe not so small, maybe as much as $25 for a core thing, just to think about that. And the other thing is.
Gonna add to that, then also I would think about consistent fees across the region. Maybe by CPI or something if there's ever cost of living, but.
there
Right,
definitely is
yeah.
not consistency with the fire department. That's, Mason County is the only county that does it. And what I've seen is the small fire departments keep their costs a little lower because they're only going out, 20 miles, 30 miles. County's gotta go out further, we gotta go out 6. And we retain the right, and we have to do this through the WAC and RCW too, for all the enforcement. So
Yeah.
even if we're not getting any money from Mason County, if they have enforcement or complaint issues, we are still running up there for that and doing an analysis on our cost. A lot of it is inspection time and complaint response and enforcement, yes. And so,
Well, and I don't think it'd be a backbreaker. I'm just using the number 25 because it's a simple one that's easy to calculate with the numbers you just gave me. That brings it up to around $200 or whatever. And if we create any fee, I think we kind of have the standard that we automatically are going up with the CPI. So I don't have a problem with that either. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. I never like that in general, but if we're doing it, we need to do it across the board because we don't want to create. One part we are, one part we aren't. The other question is if, I know it's only a small cut, but if it's any cuts that are happening, do we have anybody that's looking at what is required versus what is desired for things that we're doing? One of the first things, if we look at any type of budget cuts or anything like that, that should be the first question we ask ourselves. What is desired versus what is required? And now sometimes it's desired, but they give us money to do it. That's not cost savings. I just want to put that out. I know that and I see that. And I'm not asking to cut that when you're looking at other cuts. So, but maybe we can look at that. Sure.
Yeah.
That's it. Sorry,
Thanks, Randy. Oh, no problem. We want the questions. I guess just to follow up, I have 2 questions on the land clearing. I'm not sure if Jeff talked about why it got so far out of whack. I mean, that is compared to the other fee changes, it's pretty substantial. I don't know, Mike, can you speak to why we're so late in this adjustment?
yeah, we've just adjusted it over at least the last 10 years, if not longer, just by the CPI, which 2.3, 4, 3, and of course the cost of going out there, inspecting, the cost of employee time, benefit time has all gone up much higher than that over the 10 years. So we've just barely moved it up. And of course, again, the cost, which again, Jeff and Lynn and Tyson can announce, better, has gone up more. And we've actually, through inspections, we have found more violations. People, if we don't show up, they start throwing everything in these piles and burn them. So we've tried to increase our inspections a little bit. And in doing so, we get more inspection time, and of course, if we find the problems, more enforcement time. And enforcement costs a lot. And unfortunately, that's because you're doing the notice. We're trying to look at efficiencies in there, but those are the costs that have gone up much more than the CPI.
Yeah, so I think just this points out, I mean, it's time. I mean, the agency has been increasing our fees per CPI, but we haven't done kind of a deep analysis of our fees and what are the programs really costing and what is it going to take to approach full cost recovery. And so again, this was a pretty easy program to look at, small program. I appreciate Mike's work to look at it. We're working with Tyson and Lynn and myself. But we'll be looking at our other fee programs in the coming months. But so yeah, and this program again is a little bit different because of the dynamics of land clearing burn. I think the program can likely withstand this large of a fee increase because again, as we indicated in that briefing memo, the costs of developing a piece of property are certainly much larger, and so going from $130 to 200 something is, while it's percentage wise, it's a large increase relative to the overall costs associated with developing a piece of property. They're still relatively low. Of course, we're not going to be looking at making this size of increases to our other programs. If there are large increases, we can look at staging that over a period of time. But again, I don't want to get in there yet. But for this program, it seemed like relatively straightforward fee increase that we could make. And again, it takes, I think, from a projected, it's a relatively small amount on the overall agency budget, but it does at least get this program paying for itself.
And can I add something?
Yes.
And also, this is a program that there are alternatives, and
Yes.
we promote alternatives year round through Dan's education stuff. You can chip it on site, you can haul it away. In some cases, they have to chip and haul away when they're in the urban growth area, they can't do it anyway. So there are alternatives for all these. Every county has the urban growth areas other than, Grace Harbor doesn't have them, but they got cities where they cannot do this already, so there are alternatives. And, you know, that would be, those alternatives are less polluters by doing it. So if they really had a beef with the fee to the cost of the development of the lot, there are ways they can go. And some of our other fee that we'll deal with later, they don't have alternatives. Where here, we can tell the people actually, well, if this is too much, you can do this or this. And I think that helps.
Thanks for that, Mike. I guess I want to thank you for explaining, Jeff, the database transfer, the 150K. And so I think I missed, did you say that work was going to happen in fiscal year 2026?
Yeah, so we're on, we're hoping to select a consultant or a contractor for that by the end of June, so by the end of this fiscal year, but we are anticipating then our first payment. So our payments would be next fiscal year.
Great, that's how I heard it. And then the last question is just the decision not to rehire. I don't know what happened with Laura. I just met her, but I know that, Lynn, I thought would take at least 2 people to replace. Can you go into kind of the backup for why we're holding off on that financial specialist currently?
Sure. I mean, I can offer my thoughts, and then I'll hand it off to Tyson. I mean, who's essentially made the recommendation to me. Actually, why don't I just hand it off to Tyson?
Yeah, Greg. So I made the decision not to rehire the financial specialist position or backfill it. Part of the reason was, Lynn, if we did, Lynn would be training 2 people at the same time. And then after Lynn would be, after she left, it would be my responsibility to then oversee the financial specialist position. And I did not feel comfortable in doing that as someone brand new to the agency. I felt like I could take on the full workload, similar to my previous job at Thurston Regional Planning Council. I was kind of a one-man shop. And I also saw this as a cost-saving measure for the agency. So those were the reasons why we decided not to backfill that position. Great. So.
Yeah, no.
I love that answer. First of all, I appreciate that answer. And the beauty of that answer is if it turns out that he does need the help, he'll come to us later and say that.
Right.
One of the greatest ways an organization like this can make savings and offset that number is to slow roll hiring when it does occur. It's amazing how quickly that will eat up a deficit. If you're looking at on the low end, $125,000 a person, on the high end, 200,000, 250, depending on how high it goes, that adds up pretty quickly in a year. So even if you buy 3 months or 5 months,
There's always savings.
that's right. So I'll take it, and I appreciate it, and understand that if you do feel like it's necessary, and hopefully you don't, because I prefer that you do it, because this way you keep everything under your hands and you know exactly what it is. I appreciate it, save money, but I'd be open to it when the time comes and you come to me, even though I'm a type 1.
Great.
Great. Thanks for that, Tyson. Any questions before we pass it over to Tyson?
So I have one more question that I think is more programmatic than numbers, but we can save it for Tyson if I need to, is just to talk about the Chica Peak. What do we know about the moving costs, and how are we Are we gonna do that out of our reserves? How's that gonna play out?
So we don't, well, so that's still very much in flux. Again, Odell can give more of an update at the board meeting.
Okay.
But we don't, there won't be a lot of costs if we have to run power, but again, it's part of it depends upon how long and whether we're at the new site, which is called Bohocas Peak, whether we would be there permanently or whether we would be there temporarily. It appears that the FAA is now moving to restore power to Chica Peak. And so it might be a short-term move, but again, it's all just very fluid. But we have heard from the EPA that they are very supportive of this site from EPA headquarters. This is a unique site in the country. It's one of there are background NCORE sites and there are urban NCORE sites. This is viewed by EPA headquarters as one of the premier NCORE sites. So again, there's a lot of uncertainty with respect to our federal funding, but we believe, and actually this site is funded through for the next year, because the local EPA has already pulled the money out, so we're funded for the next year. But so there's a lot of uncertainty, but if we do need to pull to use some reserve funds, it won't be much.
It's just putting the trailer on the truck and moving it onto a new pad and hooking it up.
It is perfect, yes.
As simple as that might sound.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
cool. Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. Take it away, Tyson.
All right, so Dan, can you pull up the budget document? And I think we should just go to the draft. There we go. We'll start at the top there.
Thank you for the narrative.
A little larger feet there.
Yep. Maybe blow that up a little bit. Jeff kind of touched on some of the things I was gonna talk about.
Sorry, Tyson, didn't mean to steal your thunder.
He definitely touched on the more juicy items within the budget. So I'm just gonna start at the revenue up here. And again, Lynn, feel free to jump in at any time. So overall, our projected revenues are at 3.5 million, which includes contingency draws from the general fund and then also for the database. Grant revenues represent 17% of the budgeted revenues, fees and assessments 59%, penalties 4%, rents, miscellaneous interest 4%, and the contingency draw is 16%. And then I think you might actually want to make that a little smaller, Dan. Thanks. I don't, maybe even a little smaller, but
Seems only have.
yeah, there's, so the fee programs, include a 2.3 CPI adjustment per board resolution 274. And sorry, I'm kind of jumping between grants and fees here. As Jeff mentioned, we did reduce the core federal by 20% because of the uncertainty at the federal level. Another item in the grant revenues is the ARP grant. So we are projecting to receive revenues for the ARP grant, but I believe there is some uncertainty around that.
No, actually, you're talking about the IRA grant.
Oh,
So,
the IRA,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so the ARP grant, that's just on there because of the fiscal year 2024, but.
I see.
So that was, yeah, it's kind of rotating off, but it's the IRA grant now, that's the $80,000 that I mentioned for the Lacey monitoring site.
Yeah, and there is some uncertainty if we're gonna receive those monies, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right now, it's looking good, but
Right.
we'll see.
If we don't receive monies from the IRA grant, we are expected to pay for the monitoring site out of the general fund, I believe, so that's still a go for us. Let's see. I don't know, that's all I have for the revenue. Is there anything you want to add? Well, we did talk about the increase in the land clearing burn permit fee. So we are increasing that from 131 to 275 per acre. And I believe there was a memo attached to the budget package, which hopefully everyone's reviewed. So our rent, moving down to rent, we are,
One revenue question.
oh, sure.
How come FSEC's going up and then back down?
Do you want to
Good
talk about
question,
that?
sure. So, FSEC is a 2-year grant that we submit to, obviously, FSEC for Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, 2-year, and we are in our second year of our 2-year that wraps up June 30th, 2025. The workload has decreased significantly in fiscal year 2025. We have submitted our new 2-year work plan to FSEC for fiscal year 26 and 27 with a higher workload. And so that is what you're seeing. You're seeing a 2-year workload projection for 26 and 27 at the amount 73,073 for fiscal year 26 and 65,692 for fiscal year 27.
Which is sort of based on where they are with their
It's-
permit.
Is that an award or a contract?
It's a
Contracted
contract.
amount.
We submit a work plan every.
Okay, got it.
And they have different testing on different years, so that's explains the labor difference.
Okay.
Is that some years they'll have double the test that they will on the other years. And so, of course, double the test, double the cost.
Cause they're just sending you to sites in our region.
We only have the one
Just the
that's,
one.
that's the
Okay, got
one,
it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Grace
Yeah,
Harbor.
we go there they have lots of tests and of course inspections, like we treat them like Title V, which they are, and do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they don't, like all Title Vs, they don't do everything the same each year. They will rotate tests and things.
Perfect, thank you.
So, Tyson, I'm actually gonna take you back to the presentation you did a minute ago regarding this year.
Mhm.
Is that cost savings that we just discussed in this budget here that we're looking at, the cost savings on employment?
Yes,
And when you were doing, figuring the 400,000 for this last year, is that savings built into your view that it's gonna come around 400,000, revenue versus expenditure deficit?
right. So the first, yes, so the not filling the financial specialist position is represented in the fiscal year 26 budget. So we did not add that cost into the personnel costs. Regarding the draw from the contingency fund, that's represented in the beginning fund balance for the fiscal year 26.
Okay,
So that's
so-
where you would see that.
Yeah, but so since you made that decision after we did the budgets, that may still come back as a benefit to us, that.
Yep.
That cost savings.
Yeah, absolutely.
I keep track
Yeah.
of blocks, so.
Oh, in column 2A, which is the
I
third,
can't see.
sorry, in column,
It's not your fault.
the third, so column 2A represents the fiscal year 2025
Uh-huh.
12-month budget. We have estimated through the end of June 30th, 2025. And as Tyson indicated, we have included what we anticipate for the next 3 months, April, May, and June, for revenue and expenditures. So the fact that we are not filling the financial specialist position in this fiscal year is represented in this fiscal year estimates, and it's rolled into fiscal year
And that's why,
2026.
that's because the one piece I could see, it looks like we were going backwards, not forwards, as we're not going as far backwards. And that's probably what the difference was of the money, is that, which I thought it might be, I just wanted to actually hear it. That's-
Yeah, so if you look at column 2A and column 3, you will see an increase in salaries, and that's because, we're getting the 2.3% CPI increase, so.
And then also, everybody is still getting step increases.
Correct.
So, yep, and of course, benefits, costs are going up.
Okay,
The one item on revenue,
Sure.
Tyson, if I may add,
okay,
is the good news with Title V, we did have a slight increase in revenue projections. But better news is the 11 sources that are under our Title V program, the fee will only increase by 0.2% to cover next fiscal year workload. Just wanted to point that out.
okay, there's nothing more on revenue, we can move down to the expenses. So, yeah, overall, there's a 4% increase in our budgeted expenditures for fiscal year 26 when compared to fiscal year 25. payroll represent the largest portion of our expenditures at 75%. Non-payroll 14%, building maintenance and operation 3%, direct operating 8%. And yeah. And like we said, we are not filling the financial specialist position. And we are requesting the board approval of the 2.3% CPI for salary adjustments. So the increase in non-payroll expenses year over year is due to the planned purchase of the database, which Jeff touched on. We are anticipating a total cost of that at $150,000, which will be covered by the database contingency fund, which we are requesting the board to approve an allocation from that fund into the general fund to cover that cost. And wrapped up in the employee benefits is the elected. So ORCAA is electing to pay the employee portion of premiums for paid family medical leave and then also L&I. So we are requesting the board to continue with that. I don't know if there's anything else really I have to say about expenditures.
CPI seems low.
That's
Is
for the
that really
period
what it
ending
is?
December
Wow.
2023. I know, isn't that
Inflation
wild?
must have really stabilized. Huh.
Well, for now.
It doesn't feel like it.
Just- yeah,
It doesn't feel like it's 2.3 right now. Okay, that makes sense for me.
Yeah,
The data of when you do it.
Yeah, and it was the December.
December 2023. Yeah, for this period last year, it was, let's see, I don't have, so 2.3, yeah, for December 2024.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lynn, is there anything more you want to add to on the expenditure side of the budget?
Just that we did include a 6% increase in our health benefits with AWC starting January 2026. And we always include a slight increase, and as you all know, health benefits are increasing. And we don't have control of that, but AWC, not only they do a fabulous job with our benefits, they were also recently awarded a national recognition for the handling of the trust, from premiums to wellness to their overall administration. So I wanted to point that out. Thank
Well,
you.
as we've learned before, it's just money in, money out on that one. It's a good safe one. If they don't raise it, it's still our money. It doesn't go anywhere. So I'm
Correct.
perfectly always comfortable when you do that.
Correct. Yeah.
And then, of course, because we have the Well City designation, we were able to save 2%
2%.
what we would otherwise pay.
So they could go up to 8 and we'd still be safe at 6, but hopefully they won't, right? Right.
Don't tell
Okay.
Excellent.
Are any questions about the expenditures? Fiscal year 2025 or 26, sorry. So if you could scroll down, keep going down, we'll talk about, yes, we'll talk about the reserve funds that we have in place. We are keeping the general fund expense contingency, which is the 566 line item. So we're keeping that at 20%. And that approximately would cover around 2 to 3 months of our operating expenses. The Title V contingency, I believe we want at $60,000. So we're working towards that. We're building that up. Tenant security deposits, that hasn't changed since we haven't had any new tenants or we haven't had any tenants leave. So, and then we also have set aside for the office building 180 and $20,000 for the monitoring equipment and $135,000 for the database. And that's because we're drawing $150,000 from the 280 and we're moving that into the general fund. For vacation and sick leave, we have 155, which is based on the new compensated absences calculation prescribed by GASB. And that kind of committed restricted. So that leaves a committed and restricted designated fund balance of $1.1 million. And an undesignated fund balance of $2.5 million. Lynn, is there anything more you want to add on the
Yeah,
reserve?
a good detail there, Tyson. So as you can see, July 1, 2025, ORCAA is expecting a starting fund balance of $4,228,000 with the additional revenue of almost $3 million. The expenditures for fiscal year of roughly $3.5 million. We expect on June 30th, 2026 to have about $3.6 million in our general fund. Tyson just explained what was commit or what is restricted and what is unrestricted. Our unrestricted is $2.5 million that we anticipate June 30th, 2026. We're working on a 3-year forecast that staff will bring forward to you as requested, when requested. And you'll be able to see the trend on how the unrestricted fund balance is being used to cover our expenditures, unless we do that fee revision that Jeff and Mike talked about to help cover. It'll help stabilize that unreserved fund balance.
Well,
I know
that's-
you'll be keeping an unreserved fund balance for unknown, you know.
Any way we can get more of that done by June?
What,
More of those fee revisions?
I'm talking,
Cause I just don't, like, this is like, it's a good budget, but.
Yeah.
The bottom line is too steep.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna work on that this year, but I wonder if there's any other efficiencies we could grab or. If there's an easy set of fees that could be looked at in 30 days.
I don't think so. If we want to look at the data, I mean, we could arbitrarily make some numbers,
No,
but I'd hate to
I don't
do
wanna
that.
do
Right,
that.
right, exactly.
Rather
But yeah, I know we've mentioned the NSR, and also registration and asbestos and demo, they all, I think we'll look at all 3 of those. And I don't know if I'm missing something for next budget year, and hopefully we can make some tweaks in on all of them.
Yeah, I mean, and the RCW does specify that assessments are where the agency should look to balance our budget. And so, and don't, you know, I know cities and counties all have budget issues, and so wouldn't want to go there, but that's frankly, yeah, I mean, that's.
Well, I'm giggling is because the other option is that we control the spending.
Yeah.
It's not just automatically.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as, you know, by holding a position vacant, and again, when in my
Those
conversations.
things add up.
Totally.
I'm keeping track of a lot. That does add up. We might find some others, like I said, just even a few, because. Although I'm always thinking, and you don't know this about me yet, but I always think the world's on fire and stuff like that. It's all good because it keeps me safe, it keeps me warm and everything. But I actually don't think it's that. Keeping those other things into account and knowing that we can do some work to bring in a little revenue. It's not gonna help a lot, but it'll help a little.
We did
bit.
control it. I
Yeah.
agree, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we know where we're going and what's gonna happen with it, so I'm actually, believe it or not, more comfortable. Even though it's steep, like you said, I think we're gonna control some of that during the year. And historically, as you pointed out over and over again, we usually don't. This year, we're gonna spend. But that's not our normal, that's sometimes just the way it is.
Right.
So I'm more comfortable than you think.
Sorry, Greg, you gotta come to the meeting, man.
No, it's good. You guys you're touching on all the points. I mean, we just, sustainability is something like we have to just keep our eyes on. And we recognized last year that, that significant, fine notice violation really did kind of, camouflage some things. So I'm comfortable with this budget as it's presented too. And I'm, it's concerning when you see that trend line going down on the use of the reserve. I'm glad that we have it, but yeah, I hope we only lose 20% from the core grant from the feds too, right?
I do ask that we do send our staff to look at the things that are required versus desired, and still, because that can help us a little bit during this process. Also, are there which I'm sure you're looking, are there grants out there for things that maybe we should be doing that we could pick up some money on?
Yeah,
It's interesting too.
yeah, we're certainly looking at that. Like, for instance, we've talked a lot about, so grants for EV chargers or other things. But yeah, we'll continue to look for those.
But one other question, thought, idea that I've been trying to bring to this table for a long time, and this is my last budget. And I'm just wondering
What do you
if
mean?
I'm retiring at the end of this year. You didn't know
I did not know
that?
that.
Yeah.
Well, the hell of a way to find out.
Gotta read the Olympian,
I was
man.
gonna say, I actually like this guy, and we've worked together now for a long time, I just got that sad.
I'm
for me.
Finally, Randy could deal with Jen.
Yeah, right. But like, and I talked to Jeff a little bit about this, and so I just wanna kind of see where we are in the thought process of some sort of regional outdoor burning permit fee.
Yep.
You know, $5, $10, single permit portal for the whole region, you know, to start getting at that unfunded mandate.
Yeah, I mean, that's 300 some thousand dollars every year we spend on
Right.
outdoor burning, aside, not counting the land clearing, it's
Right.
done, that's.
So
yeah,
there's
we
one
could-
thing I'd like to see in June is that.
Well, what does that look like? And I'm honestly asking, because I don't understand completely, but you know, as a party thing, I may jump on in favor to say thank you for all you're
I
doing.
know that, have you crunched it? Or-
Well, no, we have, well.
Well, what does it look like, though? I
Well,
mean-
we have a portal set up right now
Yeah.
that Thurston County and McCleary and Fire District 12, which is outside of McCleary, they automatically just come into our system, get their permits, it's free. And that goes back to them, and the benefit, it gives them conditions. If we have complaints, it would cut the cost down because we could call and email and talk to people without having to go to the site sometimes.
No, this is-
So we do that already, so it would just be assessing a dollar amount to that and then expanding it throughout all the regions.
So for every burn or for anything larger than a 4x4 or
Any-
what we?
You get the permit for the whole season. right?
Well, yeah, and then that's the other thing, it would be not campfires and not land clearing, because those are separated out. It'd be for the brush, typical brush burning. And it would be, you'd get one permit, it's good for the whole burn season, 9 months. And yeah, whether it's, I'm thinking 20 in my head, but I think we're looking at about 5,000 of those in Thurston County alone. And I think that's what.
What does that
by the
look
end
like
of the
in
year-
Mason County?
3,000.
3,000 in Mason County?
No, 3,000 in Thurston County.
Thank you, Dan, 3,000.
Okay.
We don't know because Mason County handles their own permits, so we have to start outreaching and find out which one. I've talked to some fire departments, the smaller ones, way over in Capelas Crossing for one, for example. They thought it's great because again, it's no, but some of them may not like it, I'll be honest.
Well, there's a benefit. They get, my fire departments would know something's going on in their neighborhood and don't have to go
Yeah,
and respond if they, you know, I see there's a permit here to do that.
yeah, and that's how that's one of the ways to sell it
And
is.
how much are you looking?
Well, I don't know, I'm up with him on 20 now. I was
Well,
thinking 5 or
I
10
think
just to start.
So if I could jump in here,
Okay, yeah,
please.
we'll let.
And I can give some history too.
So this is something that Mike and Dan and I met on, we're looking at this but it's not something that we're prepared to implement in June. There's a lot of stakeholder work that needs to happen with it. When the agency tried to do this a number of years ago, it was very unpopular with fire districts, with a lot of folks. So I think it's important to do it right, and to do the stakeholder work around it. So we are looking at it. Another thing that it intersects with is the RCW requires that every 3 years, the agency looks at what's called reasonable alternatives to burning. And that we ban we ban residential burning where there are reasonable alternatives to burning. So I believe that we should do that analysis for Thurston County at least first, and then in other counties. But it very well might be that we would be in a place where there would be no more outdoor burning in Thurston County. Again, if the board were to go there, we will do the analysis, bring that to the board make a decision. So there's a number of things that are kind of wrapped up in it that I don't think that. My recommendation is not to rush to put a residential a fee on residential burning, but that we do move methodically towards that with the idea of putting the right fee in place. And again, that would be work that we're doing during fiscal year 2026, so that when we're a year from now, when we're looking at our fiscal year 2027 budget, we're looking at the fee revenue from outdoor burning, increased fees, increased efficiencies from our other fee programs. But yeah, since Jim, I know you and I have talked a lot about it, and I've been working with folks here, but
Well, just to let you know, if it comes up to the point that we're telling people they can't burn, I'll be the one guy that's not go along with that very easily, because it is our identity of how we've done things. I can understand restrictions and control of it, but completely just doesn't seem to work for me. I'm not a force it kind of guy, but I do love the idea of having an app where we're requesting people to come on and we charge them $10 to do it. And this way my fire department's already, everything already know what's happening. And, you know, a lock is only on the door to keep the honest man out. It doesn't keep the crook out.
Right.
Yeah.
no matter
But
what.
something like this, I could see it as a benefit to, because I do have people that ask me this question. I don't know why you and I've never had this conversation, probably because I'm the guy that would stand against
We've
it.
beat around it, and I think like it's really important that we do the stakeholder conversation and that we tell the story to the public. When we had this conversation before, we weren't monitoring the, you know, UGAs at the cities and what was happening, and now we're able to tell that story in a better way. But I grew up around the firehouse. I have a dad and a grandfather who are firefighters. I've been around these volunteer fire districts. It will be the same forever. And we need to exercise our authority and put in a regulatory approach that's the same for the region. And I like it in this budget.
And it would include, it should include Mason County. One of the benefits I can see right away, you have information. So now all of a sudden I have that lady that's down the road that's calling me right now and saying, Joe Schmo is burning trash. He's got a phone number and he says, Joe Schmo, are you burning trash? You know, do we need to come out here? And they stop burning trash because of it. And you don't need to come out there.
Right, and that's the first response in Thurston County now with the complaints on McCleary is first see if they've got a permit in there.
Yeah.
And if the ones don't, then we go out there and we educate them on the permit and get that and. Yeah, and so that's the selling point is that we get information, even if it was a free program to start with. You get information that could help not only us, but the fire department. And again, it's gonna take a while to get that word out to people, because it hasn't been required elsewhere, but. Like Jeff said, if we do the analysis of alternatives. Thurston County, this is just my own feeling, will be the only one that'll have alternatives that are
Right.
clear cut. So that could be a benefit, then all the other 5 counties might not have that, so they would still have the continued. Burning program, because there aren't alternatives for them. But you still right now in all the UGAs, you know, like Shelton, you can't burn anyway other than a recreational fire. So we would definitely recreational fires, we're not looking at doing anything with those. They don't need a permit for them or anything. That's your God-given right to have a campfire. It's going bigger to the bigger piles.
The one thing that would have to be in place is that you're not requiring the fire departments, because I could see why the
Yes.
fire departments would lose their mind. You're gonna put more work on us and give us, you know,
Yeah.
$5 out of that, but yeah, no, if it's. A
All through us.
voluntary program that they come to us and they can use our tool to get online and say, this is what's happening, because they should be the one that calls them if it's. Like in North Mesa Regional Fire Authority, Bo should be on the phone saying, hey, I'm getting this phone call, you're on there. I know, but we can do that later, but I'm willing to have that conversation with the board at some point.
so Jim, when you say
Maybe
you
we
would like
could-
to see it in this fiscal year, what would that look like in your mind?
I mean, my preference will be a $5 or $10 placeholder for every burn permit we think there is in the county, and then we're gonna implement. The portal for everyone to do that on July 1.
And see what the
But
cost
if
difference
we need to do that in Q1 or
Yeah.
Q2 and have funding start in January of that year, I think that's of the, you know, halfway through, that makes sense to me too.
Yeah, keep it,
No one else is gonna keep up this fight when I leave.
No,
And that's
well-
why I wanna have it right now.
I'm with you 100%. Because again, there are alternatives but the key would be, I think, starting somewhere, like you said, January, because keeping in mind July, August,
Yeah.
September. Burn ban everywhere almost.
Right.
So you're not doing anything with campfires, and that's the perfect time to get education out and stuff if you're gonna do that. So either the fall or January, you start that up. So you wouldn't wanna miss that. I think the burn ban time to get education out if you really were gonna do something like this.
And each person that goes on to get the permit has to check the box, I will not do trash, I will not do. It's an extra touch on the individual. It's easy to market, I can see how we can market it fairly cheap.
Yeah, Dan's in
I think we've taken over the budget meeting.
Sorry, Greg.
It's a good conversation. We want to give, Jim, this would be his legacy, right? If we could get this moving forward. So I'm in favor of it, especially, starting small. I mean, I remember the pushback that we got from, especially the fire departments in Thurston County when we tried this a couple years ago. So I think Jeff is right that some stakeholder work, I wouldn't mind necessarily getting it in as, into the budget as, I guess, a small revenue line to start doing it, and the kind of the timeline that Mike's talking about, though, doing the education and stakeholder work during the burn ban, coming up, getting a program, on the rails in first quarter of 26 seems reasonable.
Okay, well, what I can do, I mean, I can meet, so we'll have staff conversations to figure out kind of a proposal of what we could do, and make some revenue assumptions. But again, the question, then do we want to try to schedule another finance committee meeting in advance of May 9th?
Can I interject and suggest?
Yes,
I'm
please.
hearing y'all here, agree. I would highly suggest because it is definitely premature, there's a lot of legwork, that a budget amendment occur closer to the January startup. If this is a situation that the board is seriously looking to move forward with.
So I appreciate that, and I'd be okay with it. I'm just trying to expedite. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, understood, yeah.
I think the core for me then would be, because I want you to be smart about a proposal, right? I even though I want the outcome and I'm bullish on it. But I think the thought I had there is like, what's the staff time to do that work? And is that in here now so that we can do it, right? So that kind of an amendment in first half of the year to make sure that we have the staff time, do the stakeholder work, design the policy, bring the policy back to the board by November so that we can implement January 1.
It definitely would take some time.
Yeah, so that's probably the amendment
Yeah.
that I would need, or just assurance that there's enough time on the table.
I don't know that you couldn't have this conversation, because you've got, 4 members right now? It's not like we have 10,000 members here that might be interested in at least looking at it. Then all you do is put a $2,000 thing in the third quarter to establish
Yeah.
a place in
To
the
be
budget.
determined.
Yeah,
Well, and something just to keep in mind, I think it depends on, the Thurston County portion depends on, are we gonna do the alternative and ban it because there are alternatives? Or are we going, because we don't wanna necessarily, I don't think, we already have a permit process here in Thurston County, keep doing that, charge a fee and then turn around 3 months later and say, now it's banned.
I think if
we
you
want-
add a fee though, it makes it cost prohibitive to do the other.
That's why it's more than $5, yeah, again, there's alternatives in Thurston County, you can go to the transfer station, there are private sector. There's not in the other counties I'd be willing to bet, so I don't think we do the banning there, but those two things I think are important, are you gonna push the ban in Thurston County only, I'm talking, because they're alternatives, and the state requires you every 3 years to do that, to look at it, or are you gonna do money, charge money, I don't think you do both.
I want to get a permit and a fee on place in the whole region before anyone talks about a ban again in public.
I agree with that wholeheartedly, but even.
And then do the science county by county like we did with our air monitoring saturation
Sure.
studies.
But even still, there's a nexus there that I can't overlook. The idea that when they go to get the permit online, that it says, these are also your alternatives.
Yes.
Let's put a little pin in that for a minute. We
I'm
got 10
good.
minutes left. And are there any other questions about the budget, which is really what we're here talking about right now? Because this is a good conversation. This is probably a full board conversation too.
Yes.
Pat's here, so.
Yeah.
Mike, did you have any questions or concerns about the budget and the drawdown
think-
or anything?
This is like my first real deep dive into the finance committee of ORCAA budget. So I was really happy to hear the discussion. I thought that the document that you gave with the draft budget that went through it was really helpful. And I think that you guys talked through all the stuff that I had questions about. So I'm happy.
Great. Do you need a motion today? To
No.
go to the vote?
All right, so we're not looking at this in the.
No, but I
big
think you
board.
do. He was saying we need to go public first.
Do I need a motion because of the public hearing timeline to get out of finance to go to the board?
How would you like it to, you got a handle? You wanna make it?
I can make it. Greg, are you open to that?
Go ahead. Yep.
Lynn, looks like.
Sure, if you want, it's actually in the board meeting where, the formal,
Don't you need a recommendation for
Yeah,
finance
yes,
to the
sir.
board?
a recommendation from finance.
Yes.
Okay. Are you open to that, Greg?
I'm ready for the motion.
Okay, I move to have the finance committee approve the budget and forward it to the board for consideration.
Second,
Been moved by Jim, seconded by Randy to approve moving this budget forward to the full board for recommendation. Any further conversation? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, well, thank you, Lynn, Tyson, Jeff, everyone for a lot of work on this. It's you know, even kind of continuing the programs, I know is a lot to get in there, so really appreciate it. Anything else that we need to take care of, good of the order, before we break for the 9:45 meeting with?
a little bit of the order thing. Over here, they have these muffins, right? Now, if you wanna have the fruit, there's no plates. You have to eat the muffin off the plate in order to have a plate for the fruit.
Right.
Recycle, reuse.
Greg, I just wanna say that I thought this was a great budget and I really appreciate the transition that's happening. And this might be Lynn's last finance and last board meeting
Oh, it is.
today, so I just wanna have it be in the minutes that we thank her here, even though we'll do it more formally in a few minutes.
Yeah, and Tyson, just so you know, she's really highly recommended. She's over here telling me, and I believe her. I have a lot of great faith, and I apologize if I come off a question, but I don't know how to work with you yet. I am when it comes to money, I've gotten lazy, because literally, I already know how she thinks of what we do, so I don't ask as many questions normally.
Well, I definitely appreciate the questions.
Please don't take it personal. I just,
It makes me feel like someone's actually listening to what I'm saying.
Totally.
A lot of times I'm just talking to no one.
I care about the dollars and the numbers a lot.
Cool.
We're very interested, and Lynn has been, I would say I've learned a lot from Lynn, so, you know, we'll have the toasts and everything in the next meeting, but Lynn, you know, thank you for your service and showing me how it's done for the years that I've been on this board.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with all of you and, you know, and back at you, learning from y'all, your jurisdictions, what's happening. I love what I do and I'm gonna definitely miss it.
We're gonna miss you too.
Yep.
While she's gardening.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a great year. Really hot, July, right? Hopefully it's clean and smoke-free as well.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? I know you guys would probably like a little time to set up.
Yep, so do you have your talking points for the, so during the chair report, we've got on the agenda for you to give just kind of an overview of the budget, and just kind of remind people about the timelines and things, so.
Yeah, let me just get the actual timeline written down so I don't misstate it. I'll give a quick update of Q3, which is pretty much, you know, same old. And then as we've recommended the budget to be moved forward. So we will open it for public comment before the next board meeting. So they're not gonna really have a chance to deliberate until we deliberate with testimony at the hearing in June.
Right, and yeah, and I just would invite anybody who is looking at the budget documents to feel free to reach out and contact myself or Tyson with any questions or concerns. Because again, folks, the full board had access to all of the budget documents as well.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. I'll talk a little bit about, you know, just we're going into contingency as we knew we would. We've got the reserves, but some big work coming up with the database project as well. So
Don't forget the amendment for the legal.
oh yeah. Yep.
Happening on- And Tyson will be talking about that too in his report.
Okay.
Today?
Uh-huh.
I can.
All right.
Okay,
Put you on the spot.
great.
Great. Okay. Well, feel free to, of course, interject anything when I am giving the report if I mischaracterize or miss anything. But with that, we'll let you go meet McCarthy, and we are adjourned. We'll see you back here at the regular meeting in 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg.